often get asked, what is business storytelling? And put simply, business storytelling is when you can use a personal story and attach it to a business message. Now, the good news with business storytelling is because we're human, we actually already tell stories. So we tell stories in our personal life all the time, and we probably tell stories in business as well. Over the last decade, I've been working with leaders, giving them skill on how to use storytelling in business, and I've seen 4 types of styles that people have when they share stories in business. And the styles are determined by 2 things. And the first thing is how purposeful you are with your story. So when you're sharing your story, are you really clear on what the purpose is, or are you not quite sure what the purpose is? What I find is a lot of leaders, it's not that they don't know what the purpose is or the message of the story is, but they actually have too many. So they'll say to me, I want them to do this, 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 and this. And that's 4 messages in there. So it needs 4 stories. So the rule is 1 message, 1 story. And then the other thing that determines your style of storytelling in business is how engaging your stories are. So when you're sharing your stories, are people fully engaged with you, or have they stopped listening well before you've stopped talking? So those 2 things determine your style, how purposeful you are and how engaging your stories are. Now, the first style I see in business is what I call the bragger. So the bragger is not where you want to be. The bragger tends to tell a lot of stories about themselves and the good things they did. And by default, they're just not that engaging. Many people don't tend to deliberately go out as the bragger style, but when someone tells you a story and you sort of get this feeling or, well, good on you. And there doesn't seem to be any real purpose to it except for them to tell you sort of how great they've been in the past. The other style I see is the joker. So the joker tells really entertaining stories. The joker is a great person to go to the pub with and go out for dinner. But what the joker misses out on is this amazing business opportunity because they don't attach a message to it. So they tell their stories, people remember their stories, people love their stories, people ask them to share their stories again, and they can think that they're brilliant at storytelling, but they miss out on this opportunity to attach their key message to it. I see this quite a lot where there's this train of thought that when you're doing a presentation, if you open with an entertaining story, it's a good way to open. People will relax, you will relax, people will sort of think this is going to be a really entertaining presentation. And then you go on and do your normal presentation, and the only thing people remember is that funny story you've told at the start. Now, if it's attached to your key business message, great, but if it isn't, you've missed an amazing business opportunity. The third style I see is the reporter. So the reporter is really clear on why they're sharing their story. They know exactly the message they want to get through, but the reporter tends to use a lot of case studies thinking they're stories, and case studies are not stories. They tend to use a lot of business examples. They tend to bring in a lot of facts and figures and data into their stories, and by default, they're just not that engaging. And then the final style I see is what I call the inspirer. So the inspirer storytelling is where you want to be. So the inspirer tends to use a lot of personal stories and attaches it to a business message. And by default, these are really engaging, especially in a business environment. To give you an example, I was working with a woman who was head of risk, Rosemary, and she said to me the biggest problem she has is when she's dealing with her business units, every time risk is raised as an issue, they look at her and go, well, you're the risk manager, that's your problem. And Rosemary said to me, it doesn't matter how many times I've told them that I can't manage their risk for them, all I can do is help them, give them the skills and knowledge and advice so they can manage their own risk. She goes, it doesn't seem to be having any impact. Every time risk is raised, they look at me and say, that's your problem. So Rosemary attended one of my workshops, and this is the story Rosemary started to share. She said, when I was a kid, I grew up on a farm. And growing up on a farm, there was all these dangers we needed to be aware of, but Mum told us what to do. So we knew what to do if we came across a redback spider in the timber heap, and we knew about all the potential traps in the dam after heavy rain, and we knew what to do if we came across a snake in summer. And I remember this stinking hot day, Mum was yelling at me to get my bike from the front gate. So I ran down the path, and then I just froze, because in front of my bike was this massive copperhead snake. But I remembered everything Mum had told us to do. So I played statues, And I slowly walked backwards until there was enough space between me and the snake, and then I ran back to the house to tell Mum. And I'm sharing this with you because it reminds me of the role we play in risk. All I can do is give you the skills, knowledge and advice, so when you come across your own copperhead snake, regardless of what that looks like, you will know what to do. Rosemary started sharing that story with her business units and got immediate impact through the message. And I love that example of Rosemary because it highlights two things. One, how you can use a personal story and attach it deliberately and strategically to a business message. And the other important thing it highlights is that storytelling in business is not about the big aha moments in your life. They're the everyday moments, the everyday stories that are the most powerful because they resonate with people. So business storytelling, it's having the skill to use personal stories and attach it to your business message.